Hi! In this video we're going to take a look at some common sentence errors. These are run-ons and comma splices. We're going to talk about what is a run-on, what is a comma splice, and what are some options and strategies that we can use to correct them. So what are run-ons and comma splices? Well, they're errors. A run-on error is when we have two independent clauses written as one. So it's called a run-on because it just runs on and on. We've got two independent clauses stuck together without the correct punctuation or without conjunctions. So here's an example. Rosa wrote an editorial. She focused on politics. So notice we have subject, verb, and each clause could be a sentence on its own. It is an independent clause. Rosa wrote an editorial. That could be a sentence. She focused on politics. Also a complete thought with subject and verb, and it could be a sentence. So it's just basically two sentences, two independent clauses stuck together. Subject, verb, subject, verb. So we can't just stick them together without any punctuation or conjunctions. That's a run-on. Let me get back to comma splices. So comma splices are when we have two independent clauses connected by a comma alone. So here we have the same two clauses. Rosa wrote an editorial, then comma, she focused on politics. However, a comma all by itself is too weak. It's a weak piece of punctuation. It is just not strong enough to hold together two independent clauses. I like to say that commas are wimpy. So what do we do if we have a run-on or a comma splice error? Well, what we need to do is correct it. So we have various options for correcting these errors. We can separate them into two simple sentences. So we could use a period and make two simple sentences. Rosa wrote an editorial, period. Then start with a capital S, she focused on politics, period. So there we've got two simple sentences, subject, verb, period, subject, verb, period. Another option is to use a coordinate conjunction with a comma. Rosa wrote an editorial and she focused on politics. If we're using a coordinate conjunction, we need to use a comma. So this is one way that we can form a compound sentence to correct the run-on or comma splice error. Another option is to use a semicolon. Rosa wrote an editorial, semicolon, she focused on politics. The semicolon is a strong piece of punctuation. It is enough to hold two independent clauses together all by itself to create a compound sentence. And then our last option is to use a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, and comma to create a compound sentence. Rosa wrote an editorial, semicolon, in fact, comma, she focused on politics. So there we've got subject verb, semicolon, our conjunctive adverb, comma, and then subject verb. So we have all of these different options that we can choose from to correct a run-on or comma splice error. So here's an example we're going to look at in detail. I left my bag at home. I don't have my homework. So our first step is to identify prepositional phrases. So in this sentence, we have just one prepositional phrase, at home. Then we want to identify verbs. So we notice in the first part we have the verb left, and then in the second part, do have, helping verb do, and main verb have. Then we want to find the subjects. Who left my bag at home? I did. So I is the subject. And who doesn't have my homework? I don't. So I is the subject there. So notice we do have this pattern of subject, verb, and each of those clauses is a complete thought and could be a sentence on its own. However, it's connected by a comma all by itself. Well, let's get back there. So a comma all by itself is wimpy. It's just not enough to hold the two clauses together to form a compound sentence. So we can correct it using any of the options that we've talked about. One option is to change that comma to a semicolon. A semicolon is a stronger piece of punctuation, and it can hold the two clauses together. Or another option would be to add a coordinate conjunction. A comma used with a coordinate conjunction is enough to hold the two clauses together. So here we'll look at a few more examples. We should leave by noon. The movie starts at 1. So our first step is that we're going to try to find any prepositional phrases. So here we have one. By noon is a prepositional phrase, and we also have at 1, another prepositional phrase. Next, we're looking for verbs. Should leave. That's the complete verb for this part of the sentence. Helping verb should and main verb leave. And who should leave? Well, we should. We is our subject. In the second part of the sentence, what is our verb? It starts. And who starts or what starts? The movie starts. So that's our subject. So we do have here subject, verb, subject, verb. So this really should be a compound sentence or two simple sentences. So we need to correct it. So one option would be to simply add a semicolon. A semicolon is strong enough to connect the two clauses. Let's look at the second example. The roads are icy, theaters are closed. In this case, we don't have any prepositional phrases, so we just want to take a look and see if we can find any verbs. So, are is a verb, and what are? The roads are. So roads is our subject. In the second part, we again have the verb are, and what are? What are closed? Theaters. So theaters is the subject there. So notice again we have this pattern, subject, verb, subject, verb. But we need something. We need some kind of punctuation here or coordinate conjunction, something to connect these two clauses. The roads are icy, theaters are closed. Right now it's just a run-on. Two clauses just stuck together. So this time I'm going to say, what if we use a comma and the coordinate conjunction so? The roads are icy, so theaters are closed. We could also use a comma with and. The roads are icy and theaters are closed. That would be another option. Let's look at this last example. We will stay home. We can have hot chocolate. We don't have any prepositional phrases here, so we'll look for verbs. Will stay. Helping verb will and main verb stay. And who will stay? We will. We is our subject. And then in the second part of the sentence, we have can have as verb. And who can have? We is our subject. So again, we have this pattern of subject, verb, subject, verb. However, all we have is a comma, and a comma is just too wimpy to connect the two clauses. So what I'm going to do is choose a different option this time. I'm going to separate these. I'll use a period, make a capital W here, and now we have two simple sentences. So these are some of our options that we can use when we are working with run-ons and comma splices. We want to correct any run-ons or comma splices that we may have.